Hi friends, welcome back to Arc Tutorials. This is AWS Services Concept Series, in which this is my attempt to explain you all the services that are available as part of AWS. And the best part, after this series you will get a complete understanding of all the services that are available as part of AWS. I've already covered 4 episodes. If you have missed it, make sure that you go through it, because today we are learning about AWS Fargate. What is Fargate? AWS Fargate is a serverless compute engine for containers that work with Amazon ECS and Amazon EKS. A lot of you will get confused between Lambda and Fargate. So if you remember, we covered Lambda as part of the second concept, and I want to quickly take a minute to explain you the difference between Lambda and Fargate. Lambda is used for event driven. For example, you configure the serverless computing for events, like whenever some file is added to S3, whenever a queued message is queued, or a HTTP request, or a post, or a get, etc. etc. Those are all event driven. So whenever you have a need to configure a serverless compute engine on AWS, which is event driven, you will go with Lambda. But if you have a requirement to have a serverless compute engine for containerized applications that especially are configured on Amazon ECS or EKS, you will prefer Fargate. I hope now you will know the difference between Lambda and Fargate. Now, AWS Fargate allows us to run containers without having to manage the underlying infrastructure, enabling us to focus solely on deploying and managing applications. Now, let's talk in detail about Fargate. So we can easily run containers without provisioning or managing the infrastructure. That's what serverless containers means. You can easily integrate AWS Fargate with ECS and EKS, because they are already providing the compute containerized or EKS Kubernetes services. So we can easily deploy a serverless experience for containerized applications. Automatic scaling, so which means automatically scale compute resources to meet the need of your containerized applications. Each of this, right, serverless compute engine we can run individually as part of running the task in its own kernel. That's one of the part or feature of isolation, which means you can run your serverless container and engines basically in a isolated manner. Simplified deployment, which means you don't have to really you can just choose the kind of instance where you want to deploy the workload, and you can just select that and manage it, right? So it's pretty simple, easy, and easy to configure as well on if you have already ECS or EKS running. You only pay for the resources that you use for the containers use, okay, which means that you only pay for what you use, and hence it's also feasible from finance perspective. Let's talk some more about the features of AWS Fargate. Task definition, which means like each of it we can define container requirements. All right. So when we talk about containerized applications, we need to define those containers, right? And you can configure the CPU, memory, networking, IAM roles, etc., etc., using either your custom cluster definitions or EKS pod specifications. Networking, we can make use of Amazon VPC for secure isolated networking of container tasks. We can easily do monitoring and logging using Amazon CloudWatch, which provides complete end-to-end logging, monitoring, and alerting. It also comes with integrated IAM roles like any other AWS service. It also comes with load balancing, which means it will automatically distribute the incoming traffic across containers using elastic load balancing. This I'll cover a little bit later. Serverless compute automatically handles the provision, scaling, scale, and configuration of the compute resources that are required for that particular configuration. All right. So that's the best part about using Fargate. What are some of the pros? You don't have to manage the underlying infrastructure. Simply the deployment and configuration scaling of containerized applications is much easier. Provide strong security isolation. That means when you have multiple tasks which are running, you can separate them out and they can run seamlessly in isolation. Integrate seamlessly with ECS and EKS. Remember, I told you the difference already between Fargate and Lambda. Higher cost compared to EC2 based container deployments. Yeah, again, depending upon the load you have, the containers and the applications that you need to run and manage, the cost can shoot up really quick and really high. It's limited to AWS environments, which means that you can't have a multi-cloud strategy when you are considering building an entire um, multiple applications deploying on multiple clouds. Potential cold start latency when scaling up quickly. Okay, so that's one of the cons that we have seen as part of AWS Fargate. What are some of the use cases? Microservices. This has to be one of the most commonly used across the stack of applications that we have seen. Batch processing, independent tasks which require to run data processing tasks, um, and their requirement would be different based on their scaling or data processing requirement. But that being said, the, the batch processing can easily be integrated with Fargate. CI/CD pipelines, that is some of the, I mean, again, if you're working in any real enterprise, you would know that deployment of applications in CI/CD deployment workflows, you can integrate Fargate. Event-driven applications, again, like I said, for if it's a normal event, you can use Lambda. But if we have to run containerized functions and services in response to events and triggers, you can also use Fargate. Web applications, deploy scalable web applications and APIs using containers. Real world examples. Sage Software uses AWS Fargate to run their accounting software. Samsara leverages Fargate for their IoT data processing workloads. Yelp uses deployment containerized services with Fargate to handle web traffic and data processing. Expedia utilizes Fargate to manage their containerized applications for travel booking services. So, so these are some of the common real world examples that you can talk about if you're learning. That was all about Fargate. In the next episode, I'll talk about Amazon Light Sale. What is it? What are the real world use cases? How do you use it in your applications? I hope you're enjoying this series. If you do please do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. If you like my work, consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/arctutorials. Thank you so much.